We're finally here. It's week 1, and we got our first game of the season. Cowboys and Eagles. And this is our first time setting lineups in 2025 for this year. We're going to deep dive this matchup. The good, the bad, the ugly. How this game should flow. How it could run really good and how it could run really bad by covering the advanced analytics and covering the speed of this game. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're covering every single game here in 2025, this NFL season. Going deep, covering the must-starts from every game. We'll also have a video every single week of sneaky starts from every game. That way, if you're in a bind and you need somebody off the waiver wire, you can pick somebody from that video and just throw them in. We're covering the waiver wire every day. We're also doing player rankings. We're helping you set your lineups. It's all right here. It's free. Click that button. Stop missing out. This is a big-time matchup, especially for the NFC East. Everybody's pegging the Eagles to win this game. Michael Parsons gone, so that's going to be a huge variable for the Dallas Cowboys defense that could allow the Eagles to light up the scoreboard. Some things to note here in their last 3 games. Pass attempts up for the Dallas Cowboys, 32.33 average. And you'll see why as we dig deeper into the advanced analytics. However, only about 150 passing yards per game, 148.67. The Eagles, 23 passing attempts per game, passing yards 192. They're able to run it on the Cowboys, though, 157. Probably going to be easier with Michael Parsons not there. Points scored on average, 29.33 versus 15.33. Eagles up on them last 4 games. They are 3-1 in the last 4. And you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys and the scoring of these games. Cowboys scoring 7, Eagles scoring 41. Cowboys scoring 6, Eagles scoring 34. Shootout kind of here. As the Cowboys score 33, Eagles get 13. And then that final one, 23-28. Tight matchup here. I'm probably expecting more like those last 2 games here in this matchup. Maybe a little bit more firepower on the Cowboys side, but something similar to that nature on how we get our scoring. But deep diving these quarterbacks, when you're looking at Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott here, you're looking at 2 quarterbacks here that are very consistent for fantasy football, especially Jalen Hurts. He's very consistent as a QB1 with very few bottom-out weeks. The last 2 seasons, averaging 23.5 points per game. He should be able to move the football in this matchup. Cowboys are averaging 25.3 points per game to quarterbacks last year, 29.2 to finish the year over the last 3 games. I expect Hurts to play well, and he should rarely play bad. Like, that's what it's been said over the last 2 seasons. Dak Prescott is solid. He's going to be in a situation where he's going to have to sling the rock. He has George Pickens. That could be the X factor for him. That could allow him to hit that QB1 status. I think bare minimum, you're going to get QB2-ish. 13 to 15 points. Is that going to be enough to win your week? No. Is it going to be enough to kill you? No. Odds are going to be very low that he gets less than 10 points. He's only had 4 on the last 2 seasons. He's missed some games, but there's not many games where he gets less than 10. That being said, we should see him hit double digits. I think the odds of him hitting upside aren't very good. I think it's just as likely of him hitting single digits. So he's probably going to be around that 15-point range. Maybe a little less, a little bit more. So probably that QB2 range in fantasy scoring. You may start that, you may not, but it should be okay to get you by. You're looking at the running backs here. You're looking at Javonte Williams, Myles Sanders. Javonte Williams should start off the game as the starter versus the Eagles last year. Dalla scored 8.6 PPR fantasy points, and then the last time, 11.8. They stuffed the run. They stuffed the run really good, and this is still a very good defense coming in. This is a troubled offensive line. They were banged up in training camp. Looks like Guyton's going to be out there. But this is a troubled offensive line that could have a lot of trouble today versus that Eagles front, that secondary. So I look for this to be a pass funnel game. I look for Dak Prescott to have to sling the rock. Just connecting the dots here, they're going to have trouble running the football. If Javonte Williams hits tonight, it's because he crosses the goal line. He's not going to hit tonight in fantasy football because he's road dogging the Eagles. carry after carry after carry. He would need to cross the goal line, catch a couple balls, just moneyball his way into double-digit fantasy production. There's a good chance, like Rico did, 8.6 to 11.8 in this matchup. Considering the context of the offensive line, the Eagles, you're looking at these wide receivers here. CeeDee Lamb should be getting targets. He should be getting all the opportunity in this offense. Scored 8.4 in Week 10 against the Eagles. This is a dangerous defense here for fantasy football. This is a very dangerous defense to put in your starters. You're still starting him. You're not sitting him because of this, but it's also a very dangerous matchup for anybody with a star in their helmet. That also makes it kind of dangerous for the Eagles if they get too far up, but it's also very dangerous for anybody with a star on their helmet. George Pickens is in line to get some good workload downfield. When I think about George Pickens in this matchup, and I think about him going after the second cornerback out there, and I look for them having to blanket CeeDee Lamb, I look at Ferg out there. When I think about that all together, I think Pickens is in line to see good workload tonight downfield, and that could equate to two things: a big performance or a nasty one that we don't want. I think we're not going to catch anything in the middle. Sometimes the analysis is, hey, he's either going to go boom or he's going to go bust. I think he's either going to go boom or he's going to go bust. The coverage is going to be rolled over the CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's going to get that work. If he converts some of those targets into catches, gets a little yak, he should be fine. You're still starting him. No one's benching CeeDee Lamb. George Pickens is going to get those deep targets on the other side. We bring in one or two of those, especially those ones in the red zone. He could have a big night. If we can't convert on those downfield, it could be nasty. It could be ugly for us. It's not going to be in the middle. You're not going to catch him with a ho-hum 10 to 12 fantasy points. There's good potential he hits a 20-pack tonight. There's also good potential he hits a 5-pack tonight. That's the thing about George Pickens. That big play downfield, he could be big money. So if you're playing daily fantasy football, I'm not just talking redraft, dynasty. I talk all formats when I'm talking about these matchups. I think he's a good upside play if you're being very contrarian and also creative with your lineup setting for large entry tournaments. When I'm looking at Ferguson, this is a matchup where if the Cowboys need to get creative with their targets, he might get a couple extra as they're stuffing the run, trying to stuff those two wide receivers. Things might be open a little bit more over the middle with George Pickens on the other side. We might catch some extra red zone looks. He's also a tight end that fell a little bit farther in your draft. You're money balling with him. This is also not a great matchup for him. The over-under set at 47.5 for this game as of right now per DraftKings. There should be some scoring in this matchup, but it might be mostly by the Eagles. That's what happened the last two times they played. Ferguson might catch a touchdown. He might rack up around 5 targets. That might be enough to get you 10 PPR fantasy points. I don't really see him shooting up to a lot of upside. Last year, we did not get many upside games out of him. We got a lot of down games, and we had 15 points on the high note. I think there's a chance he hits for you, but there's some other matchups this week you may want to capitalize on. Looking at Saquon Barkley, nobody in this world is benching him. I think this is a prime matchup. Michael Parsons gone. He should road dog, skull fuck the Dallas Cowboys. He should be getting a lot of work here, a lot of opportunities. If for some reason it busts this week, how that could potentially happen is they get so far ahead that they don't really need to use them that much. I think the odds of that is like 5 or less %. I think no matter what, you're hitting double digits, and I think we're going to get a good matchup here for Saquon Barkley. I think you're going to get a good stat line. Against the Cowboys, he did have an 8.8 game last year and an 18.9. If they're road dogging those Cowboys, they may take the foot off the gas with him, maybe allow Will Shipley to get a little extra work, maybe something like that, or they got up due to the wide receivers taking advantage of the secondary. But I expect this to be a good matchup for Saquon Barkley. Nobody's benching him. You're looking at these two wide receivers. A.J. Brown's healthy. He will be out there. This is a secondary that got torched last year. Above league average, 36.1 points per game allowed to wide receivers last year versus 33.4 in PPR. A.J. Brown scored 15.9. DeVonta Smith scored 30. They both will probably give you a little something, something. If I would have to guess, one of these wide receivers is going to hit big and one's going to hit so-so. Neither one of them will bust. I think you're safe if you just want to get by with either of them. And I think you got upside with either of them too. I think one's going to hit, and it's going to be a big explosive play. And it could be two of them that's going to allow that wide receiver to score big in fantasy football. It could be 2 touchdowns. It could be a deep balls downfield. But I expect one of these wide receivers, and I'm really thinking it's going to be A.J. Brown, but that's just my gut feeling. Everybody's starting A.J. Brown due to where they drafted him at. DeVonta Smith should be started in this matchup. This is a good matchup for these wide receivers. You're looking at what the Cowboys allowed last year. They did not have any games where they shut out the wide receiver one. At least 11 points or more. They had one game against Houston where the wide receivers didn't do anything against them. That is something to pay attention to. I expect both of these wide receivers to collect, and one of them is going to collect big time. Now you're looking at Dallas Goedert. He is a money ball tight end. The Cowboys are a little bit tighter against tight ends, but they're allowing all these fantasy points to wide receivers. Wide receivers are more electric than tight ends in the passing game. If the wide receivers are always open, then the quarterback's going to go that route. Because ultimately, when you're looking at tight ends, when they're averaging ADOTs of like 6, 5, 7, and your wide receivers are around an 8 out of 10 on average per team, you're going to go deeper and get more out of your production. I think Dallas Goedert is in a good situation here, 47.5 over under to score. I think he's best for DFS. I think for a redraft lineup setting, you probably will have another tight end you're looking at. Unless you're streaming, you already made that choice. I think if I'm streaming Dallas Goedert, I'm looking at the 47.5 over under. I look at this Dallas defense is breaking. They're worse at linebacker right now. You might catch a couple surprises, like my boy Donnie E's probably going to emerge and have a player do, but nothing like the performance of a Micah Parsons. That is gone. That is zapped. This team could roll over. If the Cowboys roll over, then second half production, especially that final quarter, could zap the Eagles and slow them down. That is the only risk here with the Eagles, unless the Cowboys figure out how to make this tight and it's a lower scoring game than projected, which could potentially happen, but it has not happened lately. I think he's a good flyer for this week if you're looking for somebody off the waiver wire, but more than likely you got another tight end ready to rock and roll, and that's what you're using. But for daily fantasy football, check those prices. That's the matchup. Week 1, first game of the year. I'll have another one for you tomorrow. Chiefs-Chargers, another big one. A lot of players to look at. And then Saturday, we'll do all the games, and that will come out around 1:30, 2 o'clock, usually in the afternoon. Ask your questions in that one. Hit that subscribe button, though, right now, so you don't miss these matchup videos, because I will be pumping these out all season long. Monday nights, Thursday nights, Saturdays for the Sunday games, and then once we get Friday games and Saturday games, we'll be pumping these out as well as we get to the holidays. That is something you're going to need when setting your lineups, and I'm always going to be here for you. I'm never going to leave you. I want to thank you for watching, though. I'll catch you on the next video.